Right, welcome to Wildcard FPL, your home for FPL content. And today we're talking about injuries ahead of game week 1. Jesus, Hojlund, Nkunku, Mbuemo, Henry and Malacia are all yellow Doritoed or worse. So we're going to talk about our picks for game week 1, including replacements for those players and who we think is a safe choice. Right, so first up, shall we go with Steve? Who have you got and who's stayed in your team?
Well, I've taken Onana out of my team so far in goal. He is gone. I saw him get lobbed from the halfway line. I am a Man United fan. I was scared by what I saw. But actually, I think if you remember a few weeks ago, I was saying he's going to take a few weeks to be good. I still think that. So right now, Johnston is back in my side. For Crystal Palace. They look really good in pre-season and they've got Sheffield United away. Johnston is in there, gives me an extra 0.5 to spend on somebody else. Template back 3 of Gabriel, Estepinian and Chilwell. And then 4 midfielders who pretty much everyone will have: Martinelli, Rashford, Saka and Bruno Fernandes. And then my 5th midfielder for the 6.5 position, easy. I think he is going to be, he's taking corners, he's on set pieces, he's setting up goals. I think he's going to be wicked. And then up front, I've got Haaland, as does everyone. And then João Pedro is my current wildcard forward pick. I like him because I can get a Luton forward. So there's no Mitoma, but João Pedro is in there. And I can swap him out for probably Nkunku at some point.
Awesome.
On the bench is Macy, who's the Luton Town goalie. I think he'll probably start. He's 4 mil. But if Turner goes to Forest, I'm going to swap him for Turner. Then I've got Mabama, Baldock, and Pau Torres. That leaves me with 3 million in the bank, which is far too much in the bank. So I'll probably make Mabama to maybe a more expensive forward in the next few days, possibly Nkunku, but also I can afford maybe a few other forwards. But right now, that's my team.
Right, awesome. Thanks, Steve. Fred, are you ready to go through your team?
Okay, so I have Flex in goal at the moment. I feel like it's a good move to save the 0.5 mil, but I could go back to Onana. I'm just going to sort of see how I feel over the next few days. But I think I've been checking out Fantasy Football Hub and Onana's points seem to be going down as well. So I think Steve's suspicion is also correlated with his expected points, which is interesting. So, but I could go back to him. I do want a way into the United defence, so Onana might be the guy. Then I've got Estepinian, Stones, Chilwell and Gabriel currently. I won't go into the reason why I've got those guys in because I think everyone pretty much has them, but I could go back 3. Haven't decided on that yet. Then I've got Rash, Martinelli, Saka, Bruno and Mbuemo in midfield. The Mbuemo Dorito doesn't concern me much. I reckon his Dorito will go by Wednesday latest. He should be fine to start game week 1. I'm thinking about Maddison. I'm dreaming about Mitoma. I like Harvey Barnes a lot. So I'm just trying to figure out exactly how I can work those guys into the team. I won't get all of them, but I feel like by the deadline I'll have at least one of Maddison, Mitoma or Barnes because I'm like that. I like to have a bit of a punt and go outside of the template. And then I've got Haaland up front. On the bench, I've got Bentley as a placeholder. I'm going to get Turner in. Makes sense. I actually spoke to a couple of Arsenal fans yesterday, and they were saying that Turner's definitely going. So sort of confirmation that he's off to Forest. They've all accepted it. And apparently he's they all rate him. And then Anderson I like because I do like the idea of having Crystal Palace defence. I've got Fleck and Brentford in goal. It'd be good to have some Crystal Palace because lots of people have Johnson, so that's a sort of route into having a Johnson if I needed to bring someone from Crystal Palace in. And then Mubama, I also have. Steve's got him as well. I heard he's breaking into the West Ham team. I'm pretty happy with that. He's only 4.5 mil, so a bit of a no-brainer. And that leaves me with 0 in the bank. We'll see what happens. Stones might come out, and then I might get Mitoma, Barnes or Maddison for someone. That's me.
John, are you ready to go next?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I've got Deal in goal. I know everyone's talking about Flecken. I think that's just because Brentford's first 6 fixtures look pretty decent. But I think he suffers a little bit, in my mind, from Onana issues. Like, he hasn't played in the Prem. Warm-up game against Spurs away. Yeah, I'm going for Steele instead. Defenders, sticking with Brighton, and I've got Dunk in. I've got Saliba from Arsenal. I've gone for Stones. I think he's going to be playing CDM, maybe get an assist or 2. The first few games, Estupinian, like everyone else in FPL. Midfield, I've gone for Trossard and Odegaard as my Arsenal midfield. Bit of a punt, really, versus Saka and Martinelli. Hoping that they do something instead of Saka and Martinelli, just a coin toss, really. Stuck with Grealish. I've got Eze in there still. I think
You got Grealish in there?
I've got Grealish in there, yeah. Got Eze, and kind of thinking that I think Crystal Palace have got pretty decent run of fixtures, apart from Arsenal game 2. Got to swap them out. Then up front, at the moment, I've got Edouard and Haaland. I might go 4-5-1 with just Haaland and bring Rashford in. I've got Rashford on the bench at the moment, Wissa on the bench, Mings, and I've got Johnston as well as the Palace keeper, and that's everyone.
Very strong bench. Very strong bench.
I really like that team a lot. That's the team that's sort of similar to the team that I would have if I had some cojones.
It's also 2 million in the bank.
That's big.
Yeah.
Holy smokes! You know what your issue is there, John? You've got 3 Brighton defence.
Bit of a gamble. Looking for a Brighton clean sheet. Looking for Odegaard and Trossard to be the main men for Arsenal. And yeah, I just got this feeling that Wolves are sometimes just like difficult. Also, will Rashford be playing up front? I know it's not.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't think that's his preferred. He's always
he he's straight up said, "I don't like playing up front."
Yeah,
he just gets bored. He gets bored. He gets bored up front. You know, how many times does Haaland touch the ball in a game? But you know, he's ready and he'll score from it. Whereas Rashford just hasn't got that type of game. I think United will win. I think they will concede. I do think Rashford will do something because he looks good, and when he gets through on goal, he is quite good. But I bet that he cannot wait until Hojlund can start. And when Hojlund is available, he is going straight into my team at 7 million. That is ridiculously cheap.
Right, so that just leaves me. Luckily, I didn't have too many Doritos to worry about in my team. I've made some changes from my draft that we saw last time. I've gone for Steele instead of Onana. That's my third man from Brighton. I think they've got too much of an easy set of fixtures at the beginning of this season to ignore them before they get too deep into their European football. In defence, I've maintained Shaw. I think he's going to have a good game against Wolves, and he can drop down onto the bench if necessary. Estepinian's not going anywhere. Gabriel's not going anywhere. And Stones, I've kept Stones in there. I think as long as he gets selected, I think he's going to be in for some points, especially for the next few weeks. Midfield, I didn't have Mbuemo, so it's pretty much unchanged. I've got Mitoma, Odegaard, Saka, Fernandes and Rashford. I'm a bit worried about having the 2 Man U players in there, but the good news is they're both so expensive that it doesn't block me out of any other transfers later on. I can swap either of those 2 out pretty easily depending on how they both do against Wolves. And then I've gone for the 4-5-1 with Hojlund up front. Bit worried about the 4-5-1, but Hojlund should be, fingers crossed, not getting his head knocked off in the first week, so he should be able to get the job done on his own. On the bench, I've gone for Flecken. Still, I think, a bit overpowered in the goalkeeper department here, but Flecken and Steele can swap out in between. If there's a double transfer available one week, I can keep one of them and swap out the other for somebody else in the 4.5 million department. Wissa is the striker on the bench. He can come in week 2 when Tottenham have been dealt with or have dealt with Brentford. And Mings as the defender, he's always good for a few points when he gets rotated in. He had a really good patch at the end of last season. I think he's a great pick for 4.5 on the bench there. And then Mbuemo, he's my risky pick. I know he's had some minutes in the preseason games. Looks like he might get some minutes when the league starts. Between him and McCarthy, I think Mbuemo looks like the more promising choice. So he is the one I've gone for my third benchman. And that about wraps it up for my team. So there's been some changes there across everyone's teams. One noticeable change, Onana seems to have been disappeared by everyone. Why is that? Why is Onana out the picture?
He's going to take some time to get used to the Premier League. Goalkeepers at Manchester United typically find it really tough. It's a real high pressure environment. Every goalkeeper that's gone there, probably in the last 30 years, has struggled for a few games. And that's what made me think he'll probably do the same. He seems a really confident guy. I saw him giving an interview after that. He got lobbed from the halfway line and he was just like, I don't care. You know, stuff's going to happen. I don't care. He seems really confident, but I think more of that will happen. So I think that's why I think a lot of people have looked at that and thought, yeah, and also, you know, he's 5 mil and he's never played in the Premier League before.
You just think he needs more time on the pitch with Man United in the Prem before he becomes the first choice goalkeeper.
There'll be some mistakes. There'll be a few goals conceded here and there, but within probably 4 or 5 weeks, he'll probably be back in most people's team. They'll start to get clean sheets. He'll start to get bonus points, and we'll probably all end up having him again.
He's currently 29.6 expected points between game week 1 and 8. So yeah, 29.6, and then as an example, Pope 31.7, Flecken 31.3, Steele 31.2. He's more expensive than a lot of these other goalkeepers, and he's expected less points.
And Man United have Spurs, Arsenal, and Brighton in their first 5 fixtures as well. They're not easy games to keep a clean sheet. As Steve was saying, under the pressure of being Man United's goalkeeper, next big goalkeeper.
Yeah. Game week 6 onwards, they've got Burnley, Crystal Palace and Brentford. Maybe Onana just needs a bit of, not easy fixtures, but easier fixtures. Get his time on the card, as it were, and get a bit of confidence. And then maybe he'll be back in everyone's FPL teams from that point. Then we've got John Stones. Seems to be popping up in a lot of people's teams.
John Stones, I would say, I'll tell you why he's in my team. I think, I know Man City are a bit leaky, but it is kind of Man City. And I'm definitely basing it a little bit on the end of last season, where Stones was playing midfield and City did pretty well last year, as we all know. So I thought maybe Pep will have him doing that again. So we'll see. I think, maybe a bit of a risk, but if it is the sort of defender position where you get someone playing in midfield, clean sheets, maybe an assist, still worth the risk in my opinion, because it's a Man City defender.
Fred, what's your take on Stones? Are you thinking he might not be the best choice Man City defender these days, or are you a keen Stonesman?
No, I do think. I mean, I had him half an hour ago in my team, and now since just doing a little bit of looking online, Guardiola's got more expected points. He's cheaper. I think it just makes sense to go for him over Stones. He's 0.5 mil less. If he's nailed, then what's the downside?
Extra $500,000 in the bank never hurts. John, slightly rogue pick from you. We've got a bit of Trossard action in midfield. Ditched Saka for Trossard.
Yeah,
talk to me.
That's just pure FPL strategy. I mean, he did score a goal in the Community Shield last minute. I know there's talk of him sort of having a bigger role, and I know Arsenal fans were kind of gagging for him to start games at the end of the last season when they were checking the Premier League. So I do think he's a good player. I think he'll play more. And who knows? If the footballing gods go my way, Odegaard and Trossard get all of Arsenal's points versus Saka and Martinelli, and I'll be top of the FPL game week scores.
Top of the pile. Absolutely. Yeah. And Mbuemo, Henry and of course Tony are all doritoed or worse for Brentford. Obviously we can fill the holes that have been left by those players, but do we want to be writing off Brentford entirely right now? Are enough Brentford players left that we're interested in to be touching any of the others, or have we got to wait until the team's back up to full strength?
I would just say that I don't think Mbuemo is a concern. Rico Henry makes them, like, being injured makes them weaker, but I still think that Brentford are a really good side and they're really well managed.
After that Spurs game, Mbuemo, Henry and Wissa are all like reasonable players to have.
That's my thinking too. Yeah. Game week 1. Let me see how they get on. I've got plenty of money in the bank. I'm happy to do some swaps, move some players around.
A couple of noticeable people that we've not talked about are Rice and Fred's potential new favourite, Barnes of Newcastle. Are they worth a look in? Or, I mean, Fred, you saw Rice play at the weekend. What did he look like?
Yeah, he's just he looks great. He's obviously one of the best midfielders in the world at the moment, but he's just not an FPL asset. It's the same reason why you'd never pick Rodri at Man City or Thomas Partey, for example. Like, they're great players. Partey was playing with Rice, and the idea is to get him forward a little bit more. So we might see him flourish in that role and get a bunch of assists and goals. That could be the thing, and become a bit of like a Gerrard player. But I don't think that he's there yet. West Ham, he couldn't get forward. He had to stay back. Arsenal, he's going to be given the space to do that. I just don't, at this point, I just don't think it's worth it. When you think of the likes of like Saka and Martinelli, there's just no way that I would have Rice over any of them.
But I think the benefit that Rice brings is he has only 6 million. So you are saving a good chunk of change. But if that change comes at the cost of no points, then obviously he's not a good pick.
I think if you think back to last season, the amazing option was Odegaard, and I think he was 6.5, but he is a very different player to Rice.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the 6 is about right in terms of the price is right, the Rice is right. 6, like when Odegaard was like 6.5, he plays more, he plays further forward, he's more creative. Whereas Rice's job is to just patrol the midfield and get the ball, win it, and then give it to the more creative players. Not worth having just right now.
And he's 5.5, by the way. He's not 6. He's less than that.
Oh, right. Okay.
So he's one to look out for. I mean, if he manages to get forward, if he's getting more returns than like Xhaka did last season, then it might be worth looking at for sure.
So Harvey Barnes, tell me about him. I've not heard about him before, Fred. You'll have to give us a reason why you're sniffing the man.
He is from Leicester. Newcastle bought him to sit on the left wing. Saint-Maximin's now in the Saudi League, I believe. And he looks really good. I've always liked Harvey Barnes. Every time I've seen him play with Maddison at Leicester, I was like, he is a seriously good player. He always just seems to do something. He's always scoring goals. He's always assisting. And I think that they've got a really good player there. And I think that he will be starting for Newcastle on the left wing for most games this season. He's also never injured; like he's always playing. Like young guy, I just think it's also a bit of a punt, but he does have the XG behind him as well. So I am going to go for it. I've got a really nice, solid midfield, quite template, and I want to go a little bit differential. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to have Harvey Barnes in before the deadline on Friday.
One thing that none of us have gone for, which a lot of other managers have, is 2 premium players. None of us have gone anywhere near Kane. None of us have gone anywhere near Salah. I mean, John, you're the man in the know with the Tottenham news. What are you thinking about Kane? Is he staying? Is he going to play another season? Has he just got one more game in him? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, since early on in the season, I thought there's no point in having Kane in because I'm fairly desperate at this point for Spurs to sell him for 100 million plus. I think Levy wants 120 million or something, which is probably his price tag 2 years ago. Sounds like they turned down 100 million today, which I think we should have taken. Yeah, I mean, if he ends up staying, he's a professional. He'll keep going for the Premier League record. He'll keep going for Golden Boot, and I will rebuild my team. As I'm pretty sure most FPL managers will. Ridiculous amount of goals in a crap team last season. Exciting new manager. Did some good looking stuff with Maddison in pre-season. I'd probably get Maddison in if Kane's playing. So yeah, it becomes start from scratch if Kane does stay. And he did say that if he can't secure a move before the weekend, then he's going to stay for the season, which he's
interesting.
Yeah, and leave on a free. Yeah, if nothing happens by Friday, I'll be getting Kane and Maddison in.
And Steve, you have always been, even as a Manchester United supporter, you've been a fairly big proponent of Mo Salah, but nobody's gone near Mo Salah this season. Is there a reason you've not picked him?
Just the price is way too high, and I think the players that you can get in, if you don't have Mo Salah, the players that you can get in. So that's why so many templates have Martinelli, Saka, Bruno, and Rashford. 4 really top players, and then still allows you to have a Hojlund. You've still got money to spend on great defenders as well. If you had Salah in that team, suddenly everything else has got to be dialed down. Suddenly you've got to have a couple of 6.5 midfielders. Maybe Maybe you're not able to have those 3 template defenders that everyone else has as well. Salah, I think he's going to score goals, and I think people will start getting a bit twitchy. But I think he's so expensive that anyone who has him in from game week 1, they will stick with him if he starts scoring goals. But people who don't go for him, it's going to be really hard to get him in. If that's the play that we all need to move to Salah, because suddenly it's raining goals. It's going to be difficult because we're all sort of up against it. So you're going to have to sort of take hits to get him in. I just don't think it's going to work. So I think Salah not being in most people's game week 1 draft means that he will probably not be in most people's drafts or in their teams for the next probably 4 or 5 weeks. I also think that Liverpool can't really be relied on for results, although they are scoring a lot of goals. But I think some of those goals are going to be shared around. Darwin was in a lot of people's teams for a little while. I just see Salah as he hasn't quite hit those heights that he did a couple of seasons ago. Although last season he scored obviously a ton of goals still, and I think he got over 200 and something points. He's still one of the FPL's greatest assets, but at that price, people just aren't picking him, and they're instead going for more. They're going for quantity of mid-priced midfielders like the likes of Bruno, Rashford, Martinelli, Saka, and I can't see Salah being in my team at all unless something outrageous happens. I think if Haaland were to get injured, that changes everything, because that 14 million suddenly frees you up. That is going to rely on something like that. Something drastic is going to have to happen, I think, for the top managers to get in Salah into their team.
I was having a thought this morning that I feel like if, obviously, wouldn't want to wish this on the man, but if Haaland picked up a fairly serious injury in the first few weeks, it would make this season a lot more interesting. All of a sudden you're thinking about where the captain badges are going to go and where you're going to spend all that money, because he's a lot of money and he is everyone's first choice for captain, at least for the foreseeable future. Obviously, when he came in last year, he was touted as a bit of an injury risk, but that didn't really materialise. So we'll have to see whether he can last out the full season this year. But there's a lot of changes been made. We seem to all, apart from Mbuemo and Alf's team, have under-doritoed ourselves fairly successfully. And there's still a few more days until the deadline before game week 1. So all we can do is wait for more news and see what happens. That's it for this time on Wildcard FPL. Tune in soon for if we're making more changes to our teams, any last minute ponderings. But I think we've about hashed game week 1 to death, so we will see some results hopefully and some points. If you like the video, give us a subscribe,
and we'll see you next time.